This podcast is a production of Widener Law Commonwealth in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. For more information, visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu/podcast.
Welcome to Things I Wish I Knew, a new subseries in conjunction with the Widener Law Commonwealth Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Nace. Back to school season is a tradition that I have taken part in every year of my life since I was 3 years old. Never have I ever had a year where I did not begin a new school year at the end of August. I am a quote-unquote traditional student. A non-traditional student, on the other hand, is a person who has either taken a break between completion of an undergraduate program and the beginning of a master's or doctorate degree, or is someone who went straight into their master's or doctorate program after undergrad, but who go to school at night because they have to or they choose to work during the day. A U.S. News and World Report article from May 30th, 2019, defined non-traditional students as a person who enters higher education after their 24th birthday. Non-traditional students are usually not listed as dependents when they file for financial aid and commonly have children of their own, whereas a traditional student would still be listed as a dependent on their parents' taxes. The Institute for Women's Policy Research, a U.S. think tank whose research is commonly cited in many of the top newspapers in the U.S., has a more complete definition of non-traditional students. This classification of students includes people who are 24 years of age or older when they begin school, married or with legal dependents, those pursuing a graduate or professional degree at night, currently or formerly serving in the military, or who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. A student who falls within one or many of these classifications is going to have a much different law school experience than the traditional student will. The total number of non-traditional law students in the United States is surprisingly hard to find, but here at Widener Law Commonwealth, our number of non-traditional students is about 1/3 of the total student population. Being a non-traditional student is not uncommon, and if you are a first-year non-traditional student, or are just thinking about returning to school to earn a JD, then you're going to want to pay attention to what our non-traditional student guest, Derek Hartman, has to say on this episode of Things I Wish I Knew. I'm your host, Jonathan Nace, coming to you on this pre-recorded episode from the studio in the Widener Law Commonwealth Library in beautiful Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My co-host today is Behrend. Connor, how are you?
I'm doing good, John. I'd like to thank you for having me on the show.
You and I are friends outside of the classroom, and another of our friends is our guest today, Derek Hartman. How are you doing, Derek?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Good. I'm glad you came on here, bud, because your path to law school is pretty unique. And so, can we just start off with talking about, what did you do before you came to law school?
Yeah. Hey, appreciate the invite. Prior to coming to law school, I was a certified municipal police officer working out of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. My background started whenever I was 21 and went to the police academy, and I stayed in law enforcement for approximately about 5.5 years prior to deciding to come to law school.
And what were your responsibilities as a police officer?
They're just normal responsibilities that most people think. If you watch the episode of Cops, you can kind of get the idea. Essentially, we do patrolling. We make sure that we do traffic enforcement. We arrest criminals. We take them to the prison. We're involved in the court process, such as to the point where we do hearings and we do trials. We go and testify. And a lot of the other responsibilities comes down to community policing, where we interact with the public.
Yeah. And so that sounds like there's also a lot of individualized sort of work that you do.
Yes. So prior to coming to law school, I worked permanent nights, and a lot of my shift was I was the only officer out patrolling my township, which consisted of about 32 square miles. A lot of it was individualized work that was a self-initiated type of workplace.
Yeah. So how did your being used to being kind of on your own at work how did that feel when you came to law school, when there's all these people running around? It's pretty loud wherever you go. How did you adjust to that?
Yeah, certainly working, by yourself at night when you only to come into contact with a certain populace. Coming back to law school and to any school at all, you come into meet contact with all sorts of different people, and it can become overwhelming. But at Widener, everybody was extremely friendly. They were very helpful, even to non-traditional, which I think there is this initial fear, I guess, coming back and seeing if you're going to be able to, I guess, fit in with your classmates. Yeah. But that certainly wasn't an issue at all.
Do you remember who the first person was that you met at orientation?
As far as the student body goes, I don't know if I can recollect exactly who I met, but everybody was extremely friendly, open to introducing themselves, shaking hands, and
I only asked that because I distinctly remember the first person who I met. It was our friend Yel.
Oh, yeah.
He was the first person who I met, and then the second person I met was our friend Isaac.
Yep, 2 close friends nowadays.
Yeah, jeez. So, and actually just getting to talk to someone helped me kind of relax into being in this new world that I'm in, this new area. So, and I think that's a big part of getting into school, is not just to be an island, but to become part of the student body as a whole.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a good point you bring up about being a non-traditional student, is that, and I had this conversation with another student that we had as older who came back to school, is that it's if you're younger, you're able to actually have more time, and it seems that you're able to come into contact with other people your age and kind of create like a nucleus group. When you're older, you kind of have responsibilities outside of school, such as family. Yeah. Me, myself, I'm married. So, you really have that kind of, I guess, I don't want to say disconnect, but you have, it's kind of harder to find a group to study and have that resource available to you.
Well, if I may throw in a
little
interjection here about another beneficial side that I see, especially as a non-traditional older student. Well, 2 points here. We talked about it the other week. For you, non-traditional being a cop, we were talking about evidence class, which is it required, I believe?
Yes, it is. You have to pass evidence in order to graduate.
And so I was saying, hey, you taking evidence this year? And you said, no, I'm not taking it. I've already done that for 10 years, basically. And so do you think that's going to be, when you do take the class, a pretty kind of easier class since you've already been in the field of, working the police side of it?
Yes, certainly. I think there's several classes, being in law enforcement, I think it's beneficial to you because you do a lot of the paperwork that eventually goes to the attorney, mm-hmm. and they kind of do with what they do. But your job is to make sure that you have a chain of custody going, and you understand the legality issues of the chain of custody. One thing to kind of separate my professional experience from the law school experience is a lot of things in law school are theoretical based and not really maybe as real life oriented, mm-hmm. as policing would be. So although yes, it would be a benefit to me because I do understand the core basis of it, but I'm still in the same situation as other students.
Yeah. When
it comes to the theoretical based ideology of what evidence is supposed to be, or what criminal law is supposed to stand for, or what a law is supposed to stand for.
Yeah, you're still gonna have to analogize case to case, just like the rest of us.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, and actually, so let's talk about that a little bit. So when you were a police officer, you had to write reports all the time, and so how is writing a report for your job different than writing an essay here?
It's quite different, actually. A lot of people would think that you would be head and shoulders above everybody. But whenever you're writing as a police officer, and whenever people probably who already have experience as working as an intern or some type of law office, they understand that whenever they get a police report, it is just essentially a timeline scenario of what actually occurred that night, other than breaking it down from the legal side, which is element based, and that's the real big difference between it. So for me, writing down the facts for a case is very easy because that's what I did. But when I came here to law school and I had to write down, what elements were met and what the actual holding was, it was still difficult for me to learn, just like I'm sure it was for everybody else.
It was a breeze.
Oh yeah, no, that's
a breeze.
Yeah. So when did you decide to leave police work and come to law school?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I had, I was a very non-traditional student. I did an online program through American Military University, and I got my degree. And I had several things occur on my workplace. I went through a series of, I guess, traumatic events. One being, I was involved in a house fire, and it kind of got me to the point where I decided that, maybe it was time for me to, look at something that's going to be more beneficial for me down the road, because police work is a young man's work, and you can't, for me, I didn't foresee myself doing that type of work whenever I was 40 or 50. So I decided to go to law school and start looking ahead on what my future was going to be.
You're still a young man.
Yeah.
It's a young man's game.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is a young man's game.
But yeah, so I can totally see that, looking ahead and making a change that would be more beneficial for your family in the future. So what was the application process like for you? What was the LSATs like? What were filling out the application essays?
Yeah, so the LSAT was very difficult. So yeah, whenever I went and did the LSAT, I ended up taking Kaplan, the online classes, because everything was online for me, because working permanent nights, I just wasn't able to go to classes during the day because that's when I was sleeping. Yeah. So Kaplan made it was pretty good for me. I took the LSAT once. I was lucky enough to know what school I wanted to go to, which was Widener. Okay. I own a house. That made it very difficult for me to try to go to a law school that wasn't within driving distance of my house me and my wife purchased. She also works at a local hospital, so she wasn't willing to pull up her roots and move somewhere else just for law school. So for me, the only application I put in was for Widener, and I was accepted. So
batting 1,000. That's real stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, because Widener is the only law school in Harrisburg. Once you get accepted, once we start classes, what was the first day like? Because orientation and the first day of school are two very different things. So what was the first day in classes? I'm trying to think, because we were in the same section, so we had the same classes. I'm trying to think what the first. Well, I think it was property with Dernbach. So do you remember what you were feeling that day?
Yeah, I think it was like most students. I think there's some type of prestige that comes with you to go into law school. I think, I think your family members are always, they look at you differently because you're in law school now, and I think you put a personal type of like an honor onto you because you're in law school. So whenever I finally went to my first class, I was pretty excited. I was nervous. I think everybody has a mental image of what law school is going to be like. If you watched any movies, you know that it's going to be very difficult. Yeah. Especially, as a 1L, you have no idea of what you need to do to be successful. So I had a bunch of fears coming in to making sure that, one, law school was going to be right for me, to make sure that I can actually succeed in law school. And whenever I first came into the class, I was overwhelmed. But having Dernbach, he was he explained a lot of his material very thoroughly. He had PowerPoints. So all in all, I think it kind of gave me a taste of what to expect, and it may have calmed me down a little bit, knowing that this law school wasn't so driven off the Socratic method, which I think everybody was kind of, me personally, was kind of fearful of that's how all my classes were going to be.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those PowerPoints, because do you remember the was the one with there's a difference between a chicken and chicken nuggets?
Oh yeah. You got to break up the overall
Yeah.
roll into a bunch of smaller chicken nuggets so you can eat it.
Yeah.
That's good. Dernbach was a very, very good professor to have as your first day of law class. So he did, like you said, does a great job he has just throw you in the deep end.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not till week 2.
Yeah. So you went to college online. So your last time in a classroom before law school was high school?
Yes.
So what was...
Well, I guess I was in the police academy.
Okay.
But I guess my public school system type of school was high school.
Yeah. So what was that like to make that transition into sitting in a classroom, 3-4 hours a day?
Yeah, I honestly think there's a lot to be said about having some life experience coming back to school. I think you understand the process a little bit, why you do what you do in school, and I think the maturity level, I think your reasoning has developed to a point where you actually understand a little bit better of what's trying to be given to you by the professor or the individuals who write the books. I think when there's studies out there show that after the age of 25, your brain fully develops, and the last portion of your brain to develop is the reasoning portion. So I think coming back as a non-traditional student past that kind of mark, I think it helps you kind of, reason a little bit more with what's trying to be taught to you. So I think that was helpful to me. As far as coming and sitting in a classroom, I think, as a non-traditional, I think there's always that kind of awkwardness, but that subsided very quickly.
So what would you say you struggled with most in the fall semester of the first year?
Time management. That's absolutely, I think, even today is my hardest thing to try to figure out and try to balance. I come from a place where I have a wife who wants my attention. I have school that wants my attention. So at the time I didn't have a job, so it was a little easier than it is right now. But yeah, so once you get married and you have a significant other, that makes a lot of time that you got to take away from them to then give to something else, and it's just a constant, battle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, back to the time thing, you're right, because it's not only just going to class for 2 hours, it's reading every case, reading it twice for 3 hours, 4 hours before that class. Just so, one, if you do get called on, you don't want to look like a fool. And two, it's just it needs to be done. It's the only way you can succeed in law school is putting in the extra work, reading the cases, going back after class. So a 2-hour class on a Monday is really a 6-hour class.
Yeah, because there are no shortcuts at all. Like I know that there are canned briefs that you can look up online, but those don't do the trick. That's like you ever see that Flexsil commercial where there's this big cylinder of water that's got a hole in it, the water's coming out, and they just slap the Flexsil on there. It's like, that's not going to hold.
Yeah. Well, and another big thing it was kind of, having to get used to is whenever I got done with work, I was done. I could spend that time to do whatever I wanted. But when you go back to school, it's well, you got to be disciplined again. You got to rediscipline yourself to sitting in an area, and it was much more time consuming, and I got to the point where in my lifestyle I wasn't concerned about that, which was a big change for me and my wife to have to try to, I guess, deal with that lost time.
Yeah. So how did you adapt from that in the fall into the spring? What changes did you make in order to try to do things better?
I don't know if I made any more changes from the final week in the fall onto spring session. I think I just worked harder. I think a lot of people understand that once they get to their second semester that they know what needs to be done to them. They know how long each class is going to take, because you're generally taking the same class as you did in the first semester. You know how your outline's supposed to be. You kind of know how to break up the classes and writing out your notes. So I don't think I had to change any more my time management, because I think at that point I think I came to the realization that I just wasn't going to have that much time.
Yeah.
But it became easier because I kind of felt like I knew somewhat where the end result was going to be.
Yeah. We've studied together a couple of times, and you're a big whiteboard guy. And you were in the spring. Did you use the whiteboard in the fall too?
No, that was actually a big transformation I had. Whenever I was in the fall, I chose to go down the note card route. I chose to try out an outline, but I don't think it was that successful for me. But I did have a bunch of revelations during the fall semester that I was able to, I guess, fine tune for the spring semester that was helpful for me. And one of the whiteboard things that the whiteboard usage for me really helped me lay out the overall picture of what exactly I was looking at for the section. Instead of just looking at the rule itself, I found out that using a whiteboard was able to show how the rule was implanted or used throughout the entire scheme of that system. And maybe that's how the classes are separated. Maybe the classes in the fall are more just single rule based, and then the classes in the spring are a little bit more holistic. There's multiple levels to each rule, but either way, the whiteboard helped me kind of distinguish that type of studying.
All right, so we were talking before we started recording, and you've gone back to work.
Yeah, I picked up some hours at a local police department in York County, and I'll be working there, I believe, for the remainder of my law school career.
And what's that like to kind of now have to balance work with school?
Yeah, it was a big decision that I really had to think about, and I thought about it all summer long. And I think the balance is going to be, kind of tough. But they were able to work with me. Again, going back to the whole entire earlier conversation about what you learn from the first semester to the second semester, I believe that, knowing kind of what the end outcome of a semester is going to look like now, having the experience, will allow, people to be able to take on a little bit more extra work on the outside, such as work or externships or internships. That will help me balance my life with a job, with a wife, with law school.
So we talked a little bit about, when you chose to come to law school, you were looking to the future. So, let's say 10 years from now, what are you excited to be doing as Derek Hartman, Esquire?
Yeah, so if you would look at my history or my background, you would think that criminal justice would be something that I would like to stay in, either be a prosecutor or something like that. But my actual trajectory right now is probably towards business, looking into real estate law, looking at business law, I come from a family background where my family owns a corporation in and around Carlisle, and I am looking to stay within those realms of like a logistical business for contracting, or try to get into something with business advising.
Okay. Thank you for coming today and being our guest.
Just say thank you for your service as a police officer, keeping our society under control.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
As always.
No, I appreciate you having me. This was a really good experience for me. And I'm glad to share whatever knowledge that I have to other people that might be in a similar situation that I am or I was in.
It's now time for 5 minutes of unsolicited advice, where we go around the table and give our views and our experiences on topics that affect us all. Today's topic, breaks. I spent a lot of my time studying over spring break. Now, was it my birthday? Yes. Did I spend all of my time getting ready to go back to school? Also yes. But that's just what you gotta do.
I could talk about winter break. Winter break's about a 3-week period right after you submit your final exams. The first week, you're just sitting there happy to be done with that first set of final exams, and then you could either think you did really great and then you come back and fail. You thought you did really bad and you come back with a 3.5. I think it's important to kind of just push it out of your mind as best you can. Hang out with your friends, enjoy your family. There's not much really you can do. You can go ahead and buy your books into the next semester. You can kind of get ahead, look at the first week syllabus if you want, but other than that, you really just kind of block it from your mind and hope when you get your grades back, all is good.
In exact contrast to that, Thanksgiving break, similar to spring break, is going to be absolutely complex and really difficult to deal with. It is a minefield of family negotiations and studying. The way I see it, Thanksgiving break for me was me coming home, saying hi to my parents, going up to my room, studying. Just studying. Coming down, having dinner with them, having a good time, making sure that you look like you're there, when in the back of your head you're studying still. And then you go back up to your room to study once more. And then when you get back, you study again. And you finish up your outlines, and you try and make the best of the situation that's presented to you at the time. And for me, Thanksgiving break is, a lot of people say, oh, don't worry about Thanksgiving break. No. You should try at least to study a little bit during Thanksgiving break. That might give you the extra edge you need to get a little bit higher on that exam compared to everyone else, which is always just the best thing you could possibly do for yourself. And makes your winter break feel a little bit better, too, because you worked so hard when you're during your Thanksgiving one.
That first interview with Derek was really good. I know, Mark, you were out of the room for it, but I saw you waving out the window to us.
I wanted to say good luck, before I had to go. But Derek's a very close friend of mine. Yeah. I like him. Very straight edge, really nice guy to know,
And so our next guest is Melissa Barnes. We call her Missy. Is that okay if I call you Missy?
It's fine, yep.
So you have a completely different point of view on being a non-traditional student than Derek, because your life is different than his.
Yeah, that's probably very true. I'm a non-traditional student. This is actually my third degree. So
wow.
I have an undergrad as a science teacher from York College. I did my master's at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. And now I'm here in my 40s, back in school. So not expected, but here I am. So
yeah. And you were an elementary school principal for a little while.
I was actually secondary ed.
Secondary ed.
Yeah. My certifications are secondary ed science, so 9th through 12th grade, mid-level math, 7th through 12. And my admin cert is K through 12. Okay. So I worked in an inner city charter school with students who had dropped out and were coming back as, again, non-traditional students. Some of them had children. Some of them were in the workforce. Some of them had been incarcerated. For whatever reason, they left school and were coming back to complete some type of degree program.
It's like a GED program.
Kind of. It had some job training attached to it. But what was neat about it at the time was that the kids that I was working with as an administrator were students that I had taught as middle schoolers because I taught at the mid-level.
Yeah.
That was middle school was my love. So it was I had a connection with those kids, and that was really important to me. My master's work at Hopkins was in community collaboration, school family community collaboration, and urban education. And so I did a lot of work with creating community schools and coordinating medical services with school services, and just that all-round giving inner city families all the resources that they needed in one spot.
What's a community school?
It does just that. It's a place where adults can come in. Their kids go to school there during the day, but then adults can come in and get job training or English language help or dental services. So it provides an all-round service for those families that is really tight-knit and collaborative.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So service learning was a big thing for me. In inner cities, kids are transient.
Yeah.
They come from New York, Puerto Rico to York, and helping them establish some type of roots by giving them ownership in their communities was really important.
Yeah.
And it is important. It gives them a sense of pride when you care for where you live. And so service learning and going to the soup kitchen or cleaning up the streets or just volunteering, like that was my thesis work.
Yeah.
So that's where I come from as an educator.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of years doing that and thought that I would spend the next decades until retirement.
Yeah. So why did you decide to leave that?
I had to make the decision, really. And it came out of my personal situation, a divorce that led to a custody battle for my kids that turned very ugly, high conflict. We lived in 2 different school districts. There was a transporting and moving kids. There wasn't a way that I could stay in a school when I had to have my kids at school at 8:30 and pick them up at 3:30. An administrator's job is 7 to 5. It just wasn't a job that I could keep anymore.
Yeah. So then why law? Why law was the one that you moved to?
Yeah,
Was it because of your experience in the custody battle?
Well, first I tried to get back into education. I applied for administrative positions. I applied for middle school math positions. Really is what I wanted to do, was just continue to teach, mid-level math. But I couldn't. I was overqualified. I have a master's plus 40 credits as an administrator, which means I'm extremely expensive, compared to somebody who's coming out of their undergrad with a teaching, degree where they could pay them $40,000. They would be looking at paying me $80,000, and so I would get one interview and then not get called back. I was getting antsy. I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I'm not somebody who can just sit around and
you have to
be at home.
Something.
I want to do something, right? And so, my experience with the family law aspect of law has overall although things have gone well for my children and I, in a sense, it's been 10 years and I'm still in the courts. It's just a very long process. Not everyone understands when you are in a high conflict situation. Judges want to say that just do the right thing for your kids. Yeah. Why can't you two just get along? That's what you would expect out of good, healthy parents. Not everyone can do that. And so when you're up against someone who isn't looking out for the best interest of your kids, and you're a protective parent who's trying to do the right thing for your kids, it becomes a battle.
Yeah.
Right.
And the courts don't understand that. All they get is a snapshot, is a moment of time of 2 people in front of you. She's doing this, he's doing this. You both must be doing the wrong thing. It's just, they don't get the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I came here, I took the LSAT and thought, why don't I help? Can I be an advocate in the courts for families, women, and I know it's not gender specific, but usually it's the women who need help in situations like this. But can I be an advocate for women in these types of situations? Can I be a voice? Can I provide understanding and education for the courts?
Yeah. What was preparing for the LSAT and doing your applications like for you?
Well, I just thought I'd give it a try. Like, I applied to one law school. Widener was not the first school I applied to.
Okay.
I applied to, because I went to Hopkins for my master's, and I live in York. I was closer to Baltimore, so I applied to the Baltimore School of Law, and I did not get in. And so I just threw my hands up and said, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to go there. I guess this isn't for me. And then a friend of mine who had come to Widener and graduated a few years ago asked me if I applied here. And I said no, and he encouraged me to do so. And I had already taken the LSAT. I took it in February. And I think I applied, in April maybe. And at the beginning of June, I think I got the call inviting me to come. And at the same time, like, I had a mid-level math interview, a first interview, and I never heard back from them. And I thought, when one door opens, you take it. And, the teaching door didn't open for me. And no matter how much I pushed, it wasn't going to. And this one did. So, my husband and I made the decision that I was going to go back to school.
You went from being in front of the chalkboard to being, behind the desk again.
Behind the desk. Although, I feel like I always carry my teaching with me, that it's my first, it just feels innate, like I'm a teacher first. I don't know how that applies to law. I think I'll figure that out as I go. I thought coming here I would go into family law. I'm not sure that I will. I'm a little exhausted by the family law system now.
But let's talk a little bit about you as a student.
Okay.
So,
how's it feel coming back?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we need to know from you is what is it like to come back and be in the, like Mark said, you were in front of the chalkboard.
Now you're behind the desk again.
Now you're behind the desk.
It's
so
okay.
What's that like?
I'm a lifelong learner. I think I've come to accept that. I'll probably just always be in school for the rest of my life. I like learning something new. I think that the classes are very interesting. As a science major, I like nonfiction. So here I am again reading nonfiction, except, in these textbooks. It worries me some that some of you have come from history or political science backgrounds. I have none of that.
Yeah.
I took the general requirements. My work is in math and science. And so sometimes I feel like I've lost some footing there, but I hope that my experience makes up for that,
Well, a lot of law school is algebraic.
Right,
in
it is.
some senses. So
it is.
How do you feel like that's helped you?
It helps. It's a puzzle, really, and that's the logical part of it that I think that comes easy to me. I like chemistry, I like math, and so there's aspects that repeat.
A lot of it is like formulaic. Right?
It is.
Yeah, you have the elements, you have
IRAC.
Yeah, you have 1, 2, 3, fill them in, and then there you go.
Right, it's very systematic. And two, I always, when the professors say, like, I know lawyers don't like math, I always have to chuckle a little bit because I really don't mind. So.
You're back in school and you've got everything kind of going. You're getting your footing. So
welcome to year 2.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. Let's look back at the first semester, the fall semester of our first year together.
Yeah.
What was hardest for you?
Well, my first semester I took 4 classes, and I take day classes. So while my kids are in school, I'm here, and I was here every day of the week. I think Monday through Friday. I didn't get a day off. Let's just say if I was sitting in the home office and the doors were closed, my husband knew, don't go in, because I was really stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was jumping right into 4 classes was really hard for me. I was mean at home, I think my husband would say. And I would apologize, almost daily. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't want to be this way. I was really feeling the stress. And I don't know if that was just settling in or if that was one too many classes for me.
Yeah.
Since in the spring and then again this fall, I have 3 classes, which I think is a bit better for me as a part-time student. And I have 1 day off a week, which is nice. This semester it's Thursdays, so at least I wish it was Wednesdays, but it's not. It's not for me to decide. But at least Wednesdays I get a break where I can get things done around the house or just do some things associated with, the business for my husband. We have a home business, and so having that 1 day is really vital for me.
Speaking of that, how do you handle your time management?
It takes me a couple of weeks each semester right at the beginning because my schedule, it changes from semester to semester. And it depends on what activities my kids have to figure out where I can fit my time in to do my schoolwork. There were 2 days this week where I was up at 5 a.m. One day I got up and washed my kitchen floor, at 5 a.m. because that was like the only time I could get up and do it.
Oh, wow.
Because
you got to put
you
yourself
have 2
into
kids
it, right?
and you just have to wash your kitchen floors. You can only take that for so long. And so, because I know that once they leave for school, that, once the bus is gone, that I've got to get on the road. It's an hour commute for me. So I drive an hour up and then sit through 2 classes max and then an hour home. And I have about an hour until the boys get home. They get off the bus and are hungry for their first meal of the evening. Then I've got to get somebody to practice. Either it's football, soccer, or volleyball, and try to squeeze my schoolwork in there somewhere. Sometimes I sit at practice in my car in the dark, with my car lights on, like last night, and watch or read while, Caleb's at football practice.
That's what my mom does. My mom's an itinerant deaf ed teacher.
Okay.
And she does all of her IEPs in the car while my brother's at football.
Yeah, that's what you do. You sit in the stands. My husband is a wrestling coach, so in the winter I'm in the stands and I'm reading my law books. It's just you have to take them. They're in the backseat of my car almost all the time.
Just keep the books in the car.
And feeding everyone, it's so much. It's a lot. And thankfully the boys are a little older now where I can hand some of that stuff off.
Yeah.
You have to make dinner tonight. You learn to let things go.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes it's got to be my grades. Like, as much as I want to put everything I have into what I'm doing, I can't always get those A's. Sometimes I just have to say it's okay. As long as I'm keeping my head above water and I'm moving forward, I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. And I know that that when the end of my learning here is done, I think that no matter what my transcript says or whatever, I think I have things to offer beyond.
Yeah.
So, I hope those will be pluses for me.
Yeah. Well, I think we all had that same moment probably around November where we finally figured out how the curve works. If that moment even happened.
I don't know.
So, getting an A in law school is so hard because, the curve only allows 1 or 2 people to actually get an A. So, I think you have to learn to be happy with a B- or a C+.
I'm fine.
Now, everyone studies different. I like flowcharts. Some people like flashcards.
I love my whiteboards, personally.
Mark's a whiteboard guy. What do you do?
I'm a writer, too. I rewrite and write and write. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of outside resources. I use the examples and explanations books. I own all of them. I read them. I use videos. I watch, things on YouTube. I'll sit and watch just different, because I know as an educator that just because one person stands up in front of you doesn't mean that you understand the way that they're teaching you. Yeah. And so you need a second. It sometimes helps to have a second person come in and teach it to you a different way. It's just everybody's different, a different perspective. And so I do, some of that. Yeah. I unfortunately, because I'm here in the morning and I live an hour away, study groups and all those things that you guys are so fortunate to have each other here by campus, I miss out on. And that's just,
oh man,
that's just part of what I'm not included in, and it's okay. It's just the reality of my life. So
well, I mean, and
but
not
you found
everyone
ways
works.
to work around it, though. That's very interesting.
I have.
And I mean, sometimes you just need to be by yourself. Like, study groups don't work for everyone because sometimes you just get sidetracked by the group.
Although when I go home, I can find 100 things to do. Like, sometimes it's better for me maybe to stay here on campus and just lock myself in one of these rooms or, stay in a corner of the library. Because when I go home, there's laundry and there's dishes and there's, a 13-year-old saying, Mom, 50 times an hour. Like, Mom, watch this, do this, it's just the dog needs out or whatever it is, it's distracting. Yeah. So I work around that.
So, let's say that we have a time machine.
Okay.
Hypothetically. Say we have a time machine and you get to take all of your experience and your knowledge, everything that you've learned in the past year, and you get to go back and start first year all over again. What do you do differently? I
go back when I'm 26. So that's when I go to law school, not 46. You guys are lucky. You're going to start making your millions when you're in your 20s. I'll be 50 when I graduate. And so,
But, like, if you could have gone back and done 3 classes when you first started, do you think that would have been beneficial?
No, I think throwing me over the cliff like that was probably just a big eye-opener. I'm good, I had to go through it. Okay. I think to maybe appreciate what I'm doing now. I feel like I have it easy, Yeah. So although I don't want to take that for granted and not be on guard or, you know what I mean? I don't want to let my guard down. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do here is we learn from our mistakes and then we talk about it.
Yeah.
So what do you look forward to most going forward? Like, once you're graduated and you've passed the bar, what do you look forward to doing?
It's a good question. Like I said, I thought I came here to go into family law, and I know that I have a great network of women throughout the country who I communicate with daily, and we talk about the family court system, and we talk about what we need or how to respond to emails or what can we do in this situation,
Is
and
that
all
like
these things.
A service group or a fraternity, a sorority?
No, it's it doesn't have a formal name. Okay. But I found this group through a woman who wrote a book called One Mom's Battle. Okay. And she went through a huge custody ordeal for her children in the state of California, and we connected, and she's got a huge network that I'm a part of. And so there are a lot of women who are excited to see me, and she actually wrote one of my letters of recommendation to come here to this school when I applied. And so I feel like they're counting on me to be that voice because I've lived it, I'm living it, and I'm getting this degree now. And I don't want to disappoint anyone. I'm thinking about going into educational law, though. Yeah. Like, that's where my previous professional life is. And so I know I could be helpful there, but I'm feeling a little guilty about maybe walking away from family law. And so I'm just tiptoeing, into my 2L year, wondering where I'll end up for my internships or externships and seeing what I like. And I'm kind of leaving those doors open now because I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go. Yeah. Somewhere where I could be helpful and somewhere where I can be an advocate. Yeah. Because that's just my nature.
Yeah. Would you like to teach law?
If I knew it well enough, yes, I would pass it on. For sure. I don't know that I'll ever be certified.
So, any final thoughts, Mark?
I mean, honestly, I've learned a lot about this experience compared to, like, anything I've learned in the past.
I'm very quiet. I don't say a whole lot.
We've known her for a year.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I sat next to her, like, really close to her a lot of the time, too.
Yeah. I try to, I'm here. I'm doing my thing, and I appreciate, I know it's kind of always probably feels a little weird when there's an older student like next to you know what I mean, like But I appreciate everyone's been great and friendly and doesn't, I don't get invited to parties or anything like that, but
Well, I mean, once we're out of September, there really isn't any time for anybody to do that.
After finals.
Yeah.
After finals, yeah, sure.
No, Missy, you're our treasure, and I'm so happy you came.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate you having me.
So happy you came to Widener. So happy you joined us today.
Thanks.
It was really interesting hearing about your trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
Truly.
Thanks.
It was eye-opening.
I hope to, if you have to share your story so that you can help others, and that's
so
how to live your life.
So one last thing is, if we were going to do an IRAC of what it takes to be a non-traditional student, what would be your rule?
Manage your time effectively would have to be key. I mean, you just can't be all over the place. You have to have a schedule and time, and you have to have just your way of doing things each day. Routine.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a routine, especially when you have kids. Everybody's got to know the expectations and what needs to be done. Otherwise, it's chaos. And so, yeah,
All right.
that would be my rule.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
have
you
a great
so
day.
much for coming on.
You're
All right.
welcome.
Well, thank you again to Derek Hartman and Missy Barnes for being our guests today. Thank you for Connor Behrend and Mark Uriarte for being my co-hosts. We've learned a lot. I've seen from a view that I don't have as a traditional student, and I've seen from a perspective that I can't have because of the way that my life has gone, and I'm definitely going to take both of their advice on time management to heart, just because you're only one person. You can only do so much, and have a good routine, keep a schedule, and look ahead and not behind. So with that, I want to thank you, the listener, for joining us today, for learning with us, and you'll hear from us again real soon.
Widener University Commonwealth Law School is the Pennsylvania capital's only law school, with 3 specialized centers of legal scholarship through its Law and Government Institute, Environmental Law and Sustainability Center, and Business Advising Program. Widener Law Commonwealth offers an exceptional learning experience that is personal, practical, and professional. Visit commonwealthlaw.widener.edu for more information.